Hi there, this is Olof from Amaranthe, and you're listening to Rhino Radio.
So, hello everyone. I am here with Olof of Amaranthe, saying hello to Rhino Radio. How are you doing today, Olof?
I'm doing very fine. It's the first interview of a pretty long day of interviews, and I'm here in beautiful sunny Düsseldorf, actually. So it feels a little bit weird to travel after being home for a very long time. And obviously, we were taking all the necessary precautions with all the masks and everything, but I'm currently at my hotel room, so I don't need to wear a mask at the moment.
All part of the big celebration of Manifest. It's going to be out October 2nd.
Yes.
I was wondering, usually your music is trying to be so positive, uplift people, get everyone dancing. Was it more difficult this time with the weird scenario that we're stuck in?
It might possibly have been more difficult. It's not something that I thought more about, but I also found it a lot more important than ever before, actually, since there's a lot of negativity going on. I mean, especially with the COVID-19 situation, but obviously there's other factors in the world at play, at the moment as well, which might be bringing people down. And I think it's always been important for Amaranth's music to be the positive side of things, naturally, because I mean, especially in the metal scene, there's so many bands who speak about the negative aspects, the depressive aspects of life, and then I think that Amaranth needs to be a little bit of a ray of hope and a ray of light into the whole situation. And obviously, we already illustrated this in the video and the song called Viral, because it's describing a pretty bleak situation, but the video is underlining that, sooner or later there will be a way back to the stage for us.
I was wondering, what was your positive ray of light in lockdown, all the cancellation changes? What was keeping you positive with everything shaking around you?
I think, first of all, we got extremely lucky as a band, to be honest, because we did a tour with Sabaton back in January to February. We managed to, because it ended in the middle of February, so we managed to conclude the whole tour to begin with, and then we had a month of finalizing the songs for Manifest before we entered the studio down in Denmark, and we actually managed to cross the Danish borders just before they had a lockdown, literally 40 minutes before the lockdown. And obviously, I mean, if the whole situation would have happened 2 weeks before, then we would not have been so lucky, and we would have been forced to cancel half the Sabaton tour, and the entire album recording would have had to be postponed. There's no chance that you can find a studio for 2.5 months for such a big project. And but it also forced us to take some time off, because we were really looking forward to playing all the festivals, and it really sucked when they got canceled. But it's a little bit, almost fortunate, because we've been touring constantly now for 10 years, that the forces, at large wanted us to just take this break, So I've been spending a lot of time in my summer house up in the north of Sweden, which has been very relaxing, to be honest. So when we return, we're going to be a lot more energetic than we've been before.
Well, I found this rumor online that apparently the band was stuck together watching the new Netflix film Eurovision and reenacting all the scenes, just watching it over and over again. Was that part of the lockdown procedure for Amaranthe?
That's complete lies. Where did you hear that? That would have fit us perfectly, wouldn't it?
Yeah, I mean, I know that Nils had some sort of a interaction with the Eurovision qualifications many years ago. Is it true that maybe Amaranthe is going to go for a Eurovision song in the future?
It's not something that, quite honest, it's not something that we have talked about, currently. We did play around with the idea a little bit, when we were recording the first couple of albums. But because, I mean, we're not the kind of band that shies away from doing something different, let's call it. And Elise obviously has been in the qualifications. The same thing with Nils as well. So at least a third of the band already did it. So who knows down the road? I mean, could be something fun to do. But I mean, I think for us, it's not something that we're trying to, build our career upon or anything like that. Because I know that a lot of, especially young artists in Sweden, they join Eurovision, in the search of a long career, basically. And for us, I think we don't really need that exposure. It's also a very different kind of exposure. So if we would do it, it would only be for the fun of it.
Well, maybe next year or in the far future. But I want to touch on the singles that you've released. Do or Die was released a couple of months ago, and Viral just a couple of weeks ago. Both of them are kind of on the political activism side, talking about changes in the world, either in the physical form or the humane form. Do you think that music needs to be more political? Is it something that has to go together? Just it happens, something that you like, you don't like? Any opinions about music and politics?
I absolutely don't think that music needs to be political. And at the end of the day, I mean, we don't necessarily take any specific political standpoint. I mean, for example, with Do or Die, it can be interpreted, just exactly like you say, as a little bit of environmental activism. But basically, what we're doing there is it's always a message combined with drama and entertainment, let's say. So it's basically an illustration of the worst case scenario. What could happen, in the far future if nobody cares, basically. But we're not radicals to say that, if we don't drastically change everything we do, then this is the future in 2 months, if you know what I mean. But I think obviously you do have something of a voice when you are an artist and when you write lyrics and you release albums and so on. So I think it's almost a shame to not use that a little bit to express your, let's not call it opinions, but more your emotions on, current topics, so to speak, as to just, create a little bit more of a discussion and a debate. But the last thing that we are trying to do is to push people in a certain political direction, if you know what I mean. And even if that would have been something good, I still think that music should be, or at least could be, a little bit of a free zone from a very polarized world right now. Everybody's debating on, social media and, on traditional media as well. And I think that people don't really need their metal to be served with a lot of politics unless they actually choose a band that is overtly political. If you listen to Rage Against the Machine, you should be prepared for a lot of politics, of course.
Although even that, them specifically, Rage Against the Machine, a few weeks ago, people were shocked that Rage Against the Machine is political, where they kind of surrounded the activism in the Black Lives Matter movement. So people were shocked that rock can be political. So sometimes
they
it's
were
a surprise.
Exactly. You're scaring away your fan base by expressing political opinions. I'm like, they've been expressing their political opinions now for almost 30 years, but okay.
Well, speaking of the future and Viral as well, that touches on social media, is there something that you see now already that kids are missing out that you remember that you enjoyed as a kid?
Yeah, I mean, of course, it has meant a huge societal change, naturally. And I know for a fact that having, my nephew and my niece, and also, kids of friends, I can see that kids are playing a lot less on the outside. At least they want to play a lot less. And these days, parents, good parents have to kick them out, go play in the forest and stuff like that. And obviously, I think it's something positive to to be on the outside and play and to get a sense for nature. The more time that you spend in nature as a kid, the more respect you have for it, I think. So it might have some unforeseen consequences, but on the other hand, I think it's really an interesting thing that the kids are spending a lot of time communicating and also expressing themselves artistically on TikTok has gotten a lot of criticism, for example, but it does inspire kids to act and to dance and to sing and to be creative. And they spend a ton of time just talking to people, not only people in the school class, but people from all over the world. And I mean, obviously, when these kids grow up and when they're in their 30s and their 40s and taking political decisions, it will be interesting to see how things are affected. But definitely, kids of today are a lot more globally minded, than the generation that was growing up, at the same time as me 20 years ago, let's say.
Well, thank you for sharing that. Hopefully our kids in the future will make our world a better place. And it's not just going to be about TikTok. So hopefully, crossing my fingers, that it's going to be as positive as you predicted. I want to talk about the album as well. You have,
Mhm.
if I'm mistaken, 3 guest appearances in there on the vocal side. You have Noura from Battle Beast, Heidi from Butcher Babies, and Angela Gousseau. Obviously, we already heard that. Um, as a member that has, as a band that obviously has Elise leading the band on vocals, how do you think the world needs to be to make it even more welcoming for female musicians to take the stage, for female fans to feel more comfortable in venues? What do you think that we're either doing wrong and we need to stop doing, or we're not doing enough to make it welcoming for everyone?
It's an interesting question because there's two sides of that coin as well. Because on the one hand, I mean, it's a very male-dominated genre, obviously, and can be more than a little bit sexist in general. And especially if you see, just now that we announced our cooperation between Nora and Elise, there were some salty comments on Instagram and Facebook about Nora pertaining to the fact that she's a female. I'm like, yeah, but you've been listening to Amaranth for, we've been having a female singer for 10 years. So what else is new? Because it is, I think people can tell from the cover that it is about female empowerment, the song itself. So I think the most important thing to do is to make sure that there are more female people in the industry at large. You should encourage young girls to play an instrument, for example, not only the flute or the violin, but electric guitar and bass or drums, for example. And the more female idols that you have, and for more female metal musicians, the more normalized it will be. The same thing goes with concerts, for example. Invite all your female friends and neutralize it. And I think we're really fortunate with our band having a pretty sizable um, part of our listening base who are female, actually. I think it's something on the order of 38 to 39%, which is way, way above. It's not entirely equal, but it's way above what most metal bands have. And I think it's has a lot to do with Elise, obviously, because they feel comfortable with someone that they can identify with, basically. So at the end of the day, you can always try to work with yourself and make sure that you are not contributing, in any way to sexism, let's say. Because I think it's difficult to try to educate other people. I think that you should instead encourage them to be inviting, if you know what I mean. Because a lot of people go the route of blaming people on social media, for example, or in traditional media, and knowing bigots in general, they are going to take it personally and lock themselves even more inside their shells, let's say. So I think that even if people are acting like jerks, basically, you should try to treat people with respect and see what difference it makes.
Again, thank you very much for sharing that. Hopefully, that positivity will spread to the world. I want to confront you with one last thing that you actually told me the last time we met at Bloodstock 2018.
Yeah.
You and Elise promised me that there's going to be finally a collaboration with Rihanna. Is that happening on the album, the deluxe edition, or anything like that?
That's coming out tomorrow.
It's
A good time.
I love it.
It was funny when we released our single from the Maximalism album. I called that song, and it was actually in the headlines of the largest Finnish newspaper in Helsinki, and it said Amaranth now sounds like Rihanna. And I read it. I was like, "That's cool," and I showed it to the other guys in the band, and they were saying that I think they mean this in a derogatory manner. And I was like, "Oh, but I didn't take it as such." It's funny with people's opinions.
Okay. And I just want to ask one last question. With music bringing so many people together, especially in time of lockdown, what was a major time in your life, either as a fan or as a musician, that you just enjoyed music and you felt, I am something, a part of something so much bigger than me and I feel belong?
I think that's the really great thing about playing the summer festivals in general, actually, and because it really turns into a community when you're walking around backstage at Wacken or Grasspop, for example, and you see so many people that you have been, talking to on Facebook or you met on a tour, but all of a sudden everybody's, collected and connected together in the backstage, like artists, but also record label people, journalists, and even some fans. And it's a beautiful feeling to see the vibe and the sense of community, because with so many bands competing of a not an enormous fan base, there could be a lot of competition, but I don't really get those vibes in general. And I also have to mention when we did the tour with Sabaton that I mentioned earlier, because it was such a huge tour with 126 people in the crew traveling around, 13 people only in the catering, you know. And for us, it was really exciting to be part of, something that huge, and then go out on stage and play in front of 17,000 people in Prague, for example, or at Wembley, for that matter. It was really a dream come true to even be a, small cogwheel in that whole machine.
So before we say goodbye, let's mention Manifest again one more time. Coming out the 2nd of October. If everything goes
Yes.
well, there's even a tour with Beyond the Black. I believe it's aimed for April, just Europe.
Correct. Yes.
So crossing my fingers that it's safe for you to enjoy the world again. Is there anything else you want to say to fans and listeners before we say goodbye?
Just thank you for your time also, and hope to see everyone. I won't say soon, but I will say as soon as possible.
Thank you again for your time. I've enjoyed Manifest already. Somebody gave me a sneak peek. Sounds great. I would also recommend checking out Crystalline, which I think is also going to be coming out very soon. Great stuff. Manifest 2nd of October. Olof of Amaranthe, thank you very much. Hopefully see you again soon on the stage.
Yeah, thank you very much, man. Take care and talk to
Thank
you
you.
soon.